Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being with us again this week. So as you know, we are in our special series this week on mental health awareness, suicide awareness, and addiction. And I have a very special guest with me, Bradley Ostrom. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for being here. I know that it's not your typical day to just like up on podcasts and start talking, but I really appreciate that you come and share your story with us today. So Bradley is part of the same book as I am. That Party is Over. Bradley, why did you decide to come in that book? Why did you say yes when I asked you?
It was really exciting to have the opportunity to help other people. I remember being 19 and just being so lost and so afraid of my own demons. I didn't even realize that's what I was running from was myself. It was these scary demons that were after me, but really it was me. And if there's more people that had access to that knowledge and that had access to like younger generations, even growing up in traumatic abusive homes, like if they know that that's not normal and there's help out there for them, then great, please. Like everybody needs that information. I wish I had that information.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I wish I read that book when I was younger. I'm not sure if it would have made an impact, but I'm sure it would have, planted a seed somewhere that my life wasn't normal like I thought it was. So yeah, exactly. Do you want to
Normal.
share your story a little with us?
Sure. Just a bridged version, I guess. Was born in Aberdeen. My dad actually went to high school with Kurt Cobain, Nirvana. So my heroin addictions coming later in my life make a lot of sense. So moved to Kirkland at 4. We were there until I was 19. Changed houses, but lived in the same neighborhood. My dad was an electrical engineer, wasn't really home much because he was always working. That was his way of showing up for the family, was providing for us. So that's what he did. And I had a very traumatic incident happen with one of my parental figures at 7 years old. And I remember through doing EMDR as an adult and through doing therapy as an adult, I've been able to remember and access those memories and just this feeling of safety, like that your family's supposed to give you. I remember it leaving me at 7. I was like, I'm not safe. I'm fighting for my life. I snuck out that night with a pocket knife after the incident with my parental. And that was 7 years old. I was out walking the streets at 1 a.m. with a pocket knife ready, looking for a fight. Who wants it? So it's kind of how I grew up from that point.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I'm just imagining you all cute at 7, like who wants to fight? It's sad.
I use comedy as a coping mechanism. Mm-hmm. For me, I can cry about it or I can laugh about it, and I choose to laugh about it because it's just easier that way. So I use comedy as a crutch for sure. Basically, a bunch of kids that were all going up in the same household trauma-ridden lives found each other in elementary school, and we kind of created this ragtag team of a family to look out for each other and watch out for all the dangerous streets of Kirkland. Picked a lot of fights with a lot of other kids, started selling drugs really early. My childhood best friend and I would buy a boat of pills, which is 1,000 pills. We would sell half, eat half, do it again. And we did that from the time we were 13 to 15.
So tell me, Brad, I'm going to ask a question because as a parent and also as the judgmental person that I used to be, when you see things like that, you're like, oh my gosh, where were the parents? How can you not realize that your kid is high at 13? And on the flip side, I started younger than you, and my mom was an excellent mom. So how did you sneak that around?
Sometimes I got away with it, and a lot of times my mom just knew, but like what she's supposed to do. Um, at that point, my mom was just busy trying to keep me alive. She was worried that I was going to die, not that I was going to go to jail. She was hoping I'd go to jail, so then she'd know I was safe. But again, my dad was always traveling, so not really home much. He would come home from 3 weeks of being gone and hear about what I had done at school, and then it was time to get a punishment from him because I had done something wrong again. Welcome home, Dad. But my mom was definitely an enabler. I've told her that through her life. She knows that. She enabled my sister and I through and through. Many projects my mom would complete for me because I wasn't going to do them because I didn't think it was important. So she would just do them for me.
But you could see that as like an act of love, because I've done that from my kids, not to that extent, but doing stuff, finishing stuff for them. And now I'm realizing now that they're adult, well, I should have let them do it. I don't think it's in a bad spirit, but I think also, like, as parents, sometimes you don't want to realize the gravity of a situation. So you feel like if I fix it temporarily here, everything's going to be okay. But I'll let you continue. Sorry.
I hear that, and that kind of makes me see through my mom's eyes a little better. She could control this one little situation right here, and that's what she could make okay. So that's what she did. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that perspective. Little insight into my mom's brain.
Well, yeah, I should let you talk with my son so you would see how it was to have me as mom.
Right?
No, we won't do that. We won't.
So the other side of it too was the first time I went to a brat camp, I was 13. I had a tarp and a couple strings of pea string that I had to make a pack out of, my 80 pounds worth of stuff. Rice, lentils, pots, the spoons that I had carved out of wood, whatever, just my fire starter, all of it. We would hike through the Idaho deserts for 13 miles, set up camp. I'd pitch an A-frame and did that for 21 months. I was also I got kicked out of a high school because I had raided a locker room. There was a bunch of sidekicks and iPhones that were brand new, and I was excited because I needed drugs. So I got caught for that, got kicked out of high school. They were going to send me to jail, but my parents showed up and said, no, he needs rehab. I ended up in a mental health institute or a psychiatric ward with an inpatient program. I was there for 21 days. I got picked up from there and drove to Montana, and I was in boarding school for a year and 2 months. And I actually, in that 13, 14 months, like, had completely turned my life around and was like, I was running, they would make us run and lift weights and all this stuff. I was running 5-minute and 50-second miles, just like to the point where I was falling over and passing out, throwing up, like, did I do it? Did I make my time? Really motivated, right?
So let me pause 1 second here because I want to go back to you went to a mental health hospital. I assume there was therapy because it did help you turn your life around, for 13 months. So before you relapsed, what happened in there that made you, want to stop all of that, or you just had no choice? And
so I said a saying to my mother around 15, and it was, I don't know why, but I've always just had these really good bubbles of thought. Just came out with this to my mom. Hey, Mom, you can pull a frog out of the pond and clean it off. But if you throw that pond back in the same frog, it's just going to get dirty all over again. Basically, I go do my work and I get healthy, but you and Dad aren't doing anything. And then you expect me to come home and have different results. Doesn't make sense.
Wow.
So all of these programs I went to, I came right back. I was sent to live with my dad. I would, like, so on and so forth. And it's just like, hey, throw me back in the same pond and expect me to not get dirty again. But here we are. I'm dirty all over again.
That's so well
So
said.
that was a big part of it. I went and got my mental health right, but then I came home to the same exact lifestyle and all of the same friends. And like, it was so easy to just walk right back into that. Right. So I felt really good and I was excited about life, and then came home and was right back to it. Just, okay, time to get a job. Okay, I'm going to get a job. Somebody's got an oxy. Do you want to smoke it with me? Shit. Okay, yeah, I guess. I'm not stoked that I'm living in my dad's house. Let's do that. Yeah.
So it's easy to fall back in, and you're absolutely right. And that's one of the things actually that we talk a lot about in the book. When you want to achieve sobriety, you need to join a sober community, and you also need to change your circle, because you said it so well. If you go back in the same pond, or the same pond comes back to you, you know, it makes it like 1,000 times harder to actually stop. And then I'll let you keep going.
Trying to wipe that muck off yourself. Yeah. Swimming through like, oh, there it is again. I'm used to that. That is really important too, is that's been really key in my life today, is having sober people around me that I can talk to and that understand what's going on in my anxiety ridden brain. They're just like, oh, I get that. I was doing that to myself yesterday. So that's been very helpful for me. Something I learned early on in my recovery was getting sober and staying sober is easy. You just have to change your whole freaking life. Every aspect of it. From waking up in the morning, my routine, because my routine used to be I'd wake up and take a couple shots and then make myself breakfast. So I had to change the whole routine, everything. Start fresh, find a new pond.
Yeah, rewire your brain to, you know, I need to do that differently. It takes time, it takes efforts, but it's worth it, right? Yeah. And you know, you said my brain ridden, anxiety brain ridden, you still have anxiety. So it's not gone. How do you deal with it now versus how you used to?
The hardest thing for me at this point is sleep. I have medication management for that. I have a team. I have medication management, therapy, and EMDR, and they all check in with each other, and I check in with all of them. But the hardest part for me is laying there at 4 a.m. just going over 2 weeks ago what I said in this scenario and why did I say it that way, and blah, blah, blah. Through the day, I have that stuff come up, but I've taught myself that idle hands are the devil's work. So as soon as I find myself having anxiety, I get up and I find something to do. And as soon as I'm busy in that, it's almost meditative, and it helps me process the anxiety better. It breaks it down into rational thought, because now I'm doing something with my hands. Yeah. That's been huge for me. If I'm having anxiety, find something to do. Get up right now.
And you have to listen to your body and do it. And that's, you know, that's important. And I think that that's a huge part of learning. When we become sober, we also discover ourselves, you know, a part that we had numb for, whether it be a month or 20 years. But to which point did you really become sober and that your relapse ended? Because, you know, I know that it's weird, because for me, I was only into alcohol, and then I had a little trial with drugs just for a year. But when I hear people going into heroin and everything, I'm like, wow, that's really a problem, you know. And I know that it's stupid saying that, because my problem was, you know, the same. It was just a different substance. But explain to me, like, what's that life?
Alcohol, heroin, and Xanax are the only withdrawals you can die from.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I knew that heroin, but I didn't know the two others, honestly.
Obviously, it's based on people and how people respond to things, but those are the ones that people mostly will not make it from withdrawals. Hardest stuff to get off of. Yeah. So I guess I went into Oxford at 21. I did that. I was there. I did sobriety. We were doing step study meetings. I had a group of men that we all sat down every Thursday and read the big book together. And then I had a scenario in that group of men where I learned the hard way that just because we're sober doesn't mean that we've dealt with our demons. this guy I was in the step study group with assaulted a girl I was dating. And in my mind, what's the court going to do about that? They don't ever do anything about that, unfortunately, in our society. So I showed up at the guy's house and held court on his front lawn. That was how my brain knew how to handle things at that time. And so that's what I did. I ended up getting hit with a burglary charge and an assault charge. Did 41 months. I was looking at 10 years, sat in county for 14 months fighting the prosecutor, got brought down to 41 months. With the 14 months I had already served, I was only going to be doing 20 or so more months. So I was like, okay, fine, let's do it. Went to jail, came home, was on top of the world because I had read psychology books and was working out every day, and like actually did something the right way in prison rather than learning how to be a good, better convict, better criminal, which a lot of people do, unfortunately. I read books and I worked out and I made myself better and I was on top of the world. And I got home, and within a year, I had met another traumatized soul who needed my help. And it was my life's mission to help that person. And unfortunately, that took everything out of me. And I ran myself into the ground and ended up trying to help another buddy. He was doing heroin. All of a sudden, he was doing it in my car. And he's like, hey, you want some? And I wasn't as strong as I thought. And I ended up doing it. I went on a 4-month run, ended up doing meth with it called goofballs, meth and heroin. By the end of it, there was demons all around my trailer. There was demons all around my mom's home. Anytime I went to the grocery store, they were hiding behind shelves, just scary. I finally had an instance where the Grim Reaper was standing on my mom's neighbor's roof with his staff and his hood and everything pointing at me. I'm coming. And a day later, I overdosed. Apparently, the batch had fentanyl in it, and we didn't know. Woke up in the ICU 4 days later, just kind of looking around like, where the hell am I? Like, what happened? And the doctor's like, hey, you're talking? What? You're alive? You're talking? What? So confused. Rolls me over, looks at my legs, my butt, everything from my lower half was just black and blue. Apparently, when you die, your body sends all of the blood to the heart and to the brain to protect it. So everything else is shut down in my body. Doctor was like, don't try to get out of bed. You'll collapse. You're going to be here for a couple of days. That was really scary for me. I threw myself into rehab. I was like, I'm 24 at this point. I should have learned my lesson from prison, but what's going on here? What needs to give? I checked myself into a 21-day. That was the first time I checked myself into a rehab. I checked myself into a 21-day rehab. Did that. Got home. Was good for 6 months, but was still dating the same person. So all that same stuff surrounding me just took back over again. I found a job bartending and switched to alcohol. Did that for 4 years, blackout drinking on my shifts with my customers. Go to sleep, wake up, drink a Bloody Mary in the morning, and start all over again. Did that until 2019, somewhere in there, 2020, October.
And I'll pause you 1 second again here, because that's one point that I think is so important to understand is, sometimes we have a bad addiction. Let's say you think heroin, meth, okay, I'm going to stop. I'm going to drink it instead because alcohol is so socially acceptable. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's not as serious. People won't judge me. You can be at the restaurant and drink, but you can't really be at the restaurant and shoot yourself.
No.
It's true though, but there are two poison that are very addictive and both can kill you. But I want to pause on that because I've heard that so often about people saying, well, I stopped that. I'm sober now. I only, let's say, smoke weed, or I only drink a bit, but I don't do these drugs anymore. And you have to be careful because switching addictions is so easy. Mm-hmm. The real problem to go fix, I should say, the real sobriety is when you change it in your mind, and that when in your mind you accept that nothing is going to alter your mind anymore. And so that's a little thing that I wanted to do that. And also you said something like, I came back and he did some beside me in the car and I wasn't strong enough. I'm sorry, but that's not even strength that it takes. You know, it's so beyond that. And I guess it's something that people who never suffered from addiction don't understand, how it can be more powerful than you, no matter how good your intentions are or whatever. Like for me, I know that, alcohol, I can deal with being close to alcohol. I can deal with having some in my house and not touching it and everything. But there's some drugs that I would never, ever be in the same building of it, because it's not a question of strength. So I just wanted to point that out, because it was not a question of strength. It's like when your demons are this big, they overpower you.
Yeah. Yep. I had stuffed everything down and told myself I was okay, but I hadn't actually dealt with or gotten rid of. I had just caged in. And as soon as one of my demons was there looking at me in the face, he broke out of the cage and took over.
Yeah. And you know what? I also want people to understand here, or remind ourselves, how young you still are and how young you were going through all of this. Like, you talk like a very older, mature person, but I mean, 24 is the age of my son. It's not because he's my son that it's a young age, but it's so young. And, around 22, you start being mature. Mm-hmm. You start remembering to close your oven after doing craft dinner, so it's still, your brain is still very maturing. And while that was happening, you were going through hell and back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my body was growing. My brain didn't understand what was happening, or the synapses that were firing and why they were firing. And all over the place, just trying to make sense of it all. Meanwhile, I've got all this trauma, trying to make sense of that. Yeah.
Did you try to address that trauma before, or you were staying on the superficial level of dealing with your things?
No, I finally got to a point where I blamed everything on my dad for so long, right? Mm-hmm. I that was what I hid behind, and that was my scapegoat. And if he's not going to make any changes, why should I? Right? That was my mindset. And I finally got to a point where I was with this person that I cared a lot about in 2020. Krista's sober as well. We were blackout drinking together every day and screaming at each other, throwing pots and pans across the apartment, just like police showing up, like, hey, the neighbors called. We're so sorry. We've got to take somebody out of here. And the cops being like, what's wrong with you two? Like, I've never been called to a domestic violence dispute and had the girlfriend saying, no, please don't take him. He didn't do anything wrong. Take me. And the boyfriend saying, no, she didn't do anything wrong. Please take me. Why are you guys doing this? What are you screaming at each other because you're drunk? If that's the case, stop drinking. You clearly love each other. We had a cop say that to us, and we were like, I still talk to him. He's a really cool guy. But it's
crazy what one person's word can do in someone's life.
Mm-hmm. And right around that same time, we went down to Utah and saw my healer friend, Shelly, amazing woman. She does spiritual work on anybody who needs any type of spiritual work or cleansing, by the way. And she told me something so simple, but so huge. It just kind of changed my perspective from talking to Officer Lazo and then talking to Shelly. I was like, oh my God. Shelly said to me, when you drink, you are actively turning yourself off and actively allowing the demons to take over. So who's going to show up tonight? Is it going to be asshole number 1? Is it going to be the manipulator number 7? Is it going to be happy, flirtatious guy number 3? Who's showing up? You're letting go of reins. Who's taking over? You have no idea, and you don't have control of that. You're letting go of that control. They used to call it spirits for a reason. And I was like, oh,
wow.
Whoa, Shelly. Whoa. So that was like the breaking point. Chris and I were like, we're taking control of our lives. This is my life. I want to have kids. I want to marry you. I want to own multiple homes with you. Like, the only thing stopping us from that is drinking. It's got to go. It's got to go. It's been my biggest hindrance in my whole life, was trying to turn things off rather than dealing with them. Let's deal with them. And so I, within a week, found a therapist, an EMDR practitioner, got on medication management, checked in with my doctor, told him where I was at. I was like, it's time to change. Everything changed that month, October. Complete life change.
I'm so proud of you. Congratulations, and congrats to your partner as well. You know, because she did become sober as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about EMDR. Can you explain that for people who are not familiar with that?
Eye movement rapid dissociation.
Yes.
Why was that word so hard?
Because I'm French. No, usually I can do that because I'm French, but no.
So basically I have an application that the therapist or the practitioner sends over. It's a bouncing ball, boing, boing, but you just follow it across the screen. Watch it with your eyes. Try not to move your head, just follow it with your eyes. And then you'll hear a sound, pop, 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 back and forth at the same time. And then the practitioner's like, okay, so mine started out with, what's our core memory? Mine was being ripped out of the shower and strangled at 7. Okay, there's our core memory. What was the belief that came along with that? Well, I'm a bad kid and I deserve to be punished. Okay, so there's our thought. There's our scene. Let's breathe. Let's follow this ball and just tell me what you start seeing. Tell me what you're thinking. And we would just do that. She'd stop me every minute or 2 minutes and say, okay, what came up for you now? And as I did that, more and more and more and more of my trauma that I didn't even know was there started to pour out of me. Just fights and like friends getting shot at Halloween parties, and just all this started festering its way out, oozing out of me. And I remember my first session it was 2 days. 2 days after my first session, I was in bed, vertical. Babe, can you bring me water? I can't. That's how much energy it took out of me. And that's how much my body needed to reprocess and restore and heal itself. So it is really powerful. Every session's gotten a little bit easier, but I do have to give myself about a day after each session to just process and let my body heal itself and let my brain rewire itself, and do that for a week. I see my therapist the next week. We go over everything, talk about what came up, what was hard for me. And then next week we do EMDR again. So it's bi-weekly. 1 week EMDR, next week check in with therapist. Keep going.
So you're doing a lot of work for your sobriety and your mental health. And, that's what I'm glad that you're touching on as well, because it's not just about taking a pill. Mental health, there is a chemical imbalance that you can fix with medication. There is, sleep disorder that you can fix with medication. But medication is also more of a Band-Aid. You need to go deeper and find out, like, how can I stop feeling these things? Well, it's by fixing it. So if you don't take the time and you don't put in the energy and the efforts to actually go fix something, it's not going to get fixed. And I think that you had a few years to try that out, the fixing part not working. So I'm super happy for you that you're putting in all this work. And I was super impressed when we met. I was just like, when can we meet? And right away you were so upfront. You're like, well, I don't get up early. I need to this. Like, yourself so well, and you respect yourself. And talk a bit about that, because it is so important. And I think that it's one thing that we don't do when we use and everything, because we don't even know really what we need. You're able to stay up for 48 hours and go. And at some point your brain is just like saying yes to everything. So how is that switch for you?
I wanted to touch, I'll touch on that, but I wanted to touch on the medication thing.
Yes.
I studied psychology when I got home from prison. I'm 30 credits away from getting my bachelor's in psychology. I just need to finish my foreign language. And my capstone, whatever that equivalent is for college. But I started my own business and started making money hand over fist, and was like, why am I paying to be in college? This doesn't make sense. So I have all this psychology knowledge in my brain. And one of the things I took from psychology was medication is meant to be a crutch. It's supposed to help us through right now. But if you end up on it long term, instead of seeing a therapist, you just take antidepressants the rest of your life. Now it turns into a wheelchair to help get you through life. So it's important to take it as a crutch, use it, get off your broken leg, mend that leg, and then get rid of the crutches.
Very well said. So I'm going to borrow this saying.
I totally agree with you on that side. The other side is getting to know myself. I know if I don't sleep, which I'm a really light sleeper, I'll fall asleep and then the cat will knock something off the shelf and now I'm up for 3 hours. And so that's really interesting for me. And that's something I'm working on and I get to live with right now, unfortunately, but I'm learning how to live with that. I know if I don't sleep well one night, I'm kind of useless the next day. I'll go try to work. I'll go to my construction job site. I'll go work a trade show, whatever. And I'm like, can't keep food down. I think all of the drugs and all the like psychosis that I put on myself, as soon as I don't get my 8 hours of sleep, the psychosis turns back on. And I'm like, people are trying to get me. Who's poisoned my water? It just gets, so I'm like, I'm going to take the day off. I just need to rest. I'm going to take a 4-hour nap this afternoon because that's what I need to do. So I'm not delusional. And that's what I do. And I also, I want to be upfront with people because I've made appointments in the past and made that mistake and then not been able to be awake for them because I didn't fall asleep until 3 a.m. So I always set, even on job sites, like I'm remodeling someone's kitchen. Hey, I'll be there at noon. See you guys then. That's just how I run it. Cause I know if something happens, I'm going to show up at their house at 8 a.m. and be a zombie and be convinced that they're trying to screw up my job site. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know yourself and it's good to plan accordingly as well. And you know what? Some people are early birds, some are night people. It's whatever you are, it's okay as long as you respect yourself and you plan accordingly. So for that, like, congratulations as well. There's one thing that I was going to touch on and I just got a brain blank. I have these too sometimes. Yeah, no, I was going to say, I saw a naturopath at some point and, I did 1 year of a hard drug and basically didn't sleep for that year. And I wasn't even drinking during that year because for me, it was always one thing or the other. I didn't mix. But regardless, that's like decades ago. And she said, do you have any idea how much you depleted your body over that year? Yeah. So imagine you, like when you deplete your body so much, our body is strong and it will continue, but it's going to take so much time as well to, get back all the nutrients, get back all the things at the right place and, get back 100% functional because we did, kill parts of ourselves and all of that. And, the last thing that I want to touch on is, suicide awareness, because I know that when I talked to you about that, you said, well, I never attempted suicide. And I said, no, I know. But we also, when we're in those situations or in that mood, we really don't care about life either, because otherwise, don't you think that we would not destroy ourselves this much?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think that that's where, the cat, that's where the link is a bit into, valuing your life. And also it's so worth it to be there. And you will see when you have your kids later and all of this seems like 14 lives ago. You will be like, I'm so happy to still be here and look at my kids. Anyway, Bradley, it was such a pleasure to have you and I would keep you all day, but apparently we need to finish it at some point. What would you leave people with? Like this one thing that you really want to leave people with?
Yeah, so I was kind of confused on the suicide awareness side of things. Like how can I attach myself to that? And I was turning myself off. I didn't want to be a part of life. I didn't want to actively show up for life. And so I would switch the light switch and I'd be gone. And that was self-harm. I was shoving drugs into my body and actively hurting myself and putting myself into the ICU. And I was definitely hurting myself and self-harming myself. It was just my own
Because it
sick,
happened
twisted
more
way
than
of,
once.
yeah, I woke up in the ICU multiple times. So I never directly tried to end my life, but I was actively trying to end my life. You know what I mean? I was trying to turn it off. I didn't want to be a part of it.
And
I've
after this burst of sobriety, how happy are you that
I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be here. I'm stoked to have kids. I'm stoked for my partner. I'm stoked. We're looking at houses and we want to start buying up properties in Kirkland while we can, because 10 years from now, we're not going to be able to buy houses, y'all. So buy your house now. So we're just excited. We're really excited to get our lives moving and get our kids onto this planet and sign our soul contracts with them. And
and they're going to be so cute. So now I'm going to re-ask, because I did cut you. What is the one thing that you want to leave people with?
Showing up for yourself. I've learned I have to be really selfish in my life, because I'm a giver and I'm a healer and I'm an empath, and I naturally want to help other people. And if I'm helping other people all the time, then I don't have any energy stores left for me. And then we all know how my brain responds when I don't have my own energy, but I have tools now where I can work through that. But let's just not put myself in that situation, right? So always show up for yourself. Always pay attention to the way that you're responding to the world around you and responding to yourself. Self-talk is really important. Getting up and telling yourself you're amazing and you're going to crush today and you're beautiful. Look at you, go get it. It's really important. Just tune into yourself. And once you've tuned into yourself enough to know yourself enough, then tune into other people around you.
Very well said. Thank you so much. If you want to read the full story of Bradley, get the book. That party is over. It's 12 inspiring journeys to sobriety. Bradley, it was such a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And thank you for your time. And it's your precious words as well. I hope that someone will resonate with what you said and realize that it's time to turn their life around. So to everyone who is here today, thank you. If ever you want to reach Bradley, just contact me. That's it. I wish you a beautiful week. And Bradley, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thanks for everybody who tuned in. I hope you got something out of this.